Hello and welcome to Good or Bad. I just want to get this out of the way now. The whole concept of sharks taking things personally is stupid, especially when they don't even tell us why the shark wants revenge. I mean, is it part of a family? Or maybe even a community of sharks? Or did they just neglect to mention the fact that the shark comes back to life at the end of each movie? But whatever the reason, the point I'm trying to get across here is it's stupid. Now that's out of the way, let's get started with Jaws: The Revenge. Released in 1987 and directed by Joseph Sargent, Jaws: The Revenge was the fourth and final Jaws movie. Those do not count, and neither do any other Jaws rip-off movies that you can come up with. The movie opens with the usual underwater camera sequence, only this time it's 2 minutes 22 seconds long! 2 minutes... whatever. It's Christmas time and we are back on Amity Island in the Brody household, where we have Lorraine Gary reprising her role as Ellen Brody, and her youngest son Shawn played by Mitchell Anderson. They get a phone call from Michael, her oldest son, who now lives in the Bahamas. But where is Martin Brody? Well, the answer to that question is the writers killed Martin Brody off between movies. Which sucks. It turns out Shawn followed in his father's footsteps to the police force, and is now the deputy. He gets a call that a log is stuck on a channel marker and he has to go out there to remove it himself because the Coast Guard is busy, and as usual the Amity police force has like 3 cops. As Shawn is removing the log from the channel marker, the shark bursts out of the water and attacks. Oh good lord, this thing is so badass that there is blood in the water before it sinks its teeth in. Well, either that or it has a gun bleeding problem. Just a tad underplaying the whole having your arm bitten off. He then gets attacked again and pulled into the water where the shark finishes him off. Okay, I really do have to give the shark attack scene credit. The camera work and shots of the shark's teeth and the arm severing with all the gore that implies were really well done. Well, that is, except for the part where he is screaming on the boat. Not enough gore there, and he acts like losing his arm is more inconvenient than life-shattering. The rest of the attack, where the shark pulls him into the water and finishes him off, is done just as well. I especially love the element of isolation in this scene, as he is afloat in the water and all we can hear is him screaming for help and a choir singing Christmas carols in the background. This death is up there with the greatest shark attack scenes across all 4 Jaws movies. Which is kind of sad because when this film opens you think, okay, they are putting the lame effects and cheesiness that was Jaws 3D behind them, and finally giving us a proper Jaws movie again. But unfortunately, when it comes to really cool and harrowing shark attack scenes, this is all we get from this movie. Michael, this time played by Lance Guest, flies in from the Bahamas, with his wife Carla played by Karen Young and their daughter Thea played by Judith Barsai, to attend the funeral and comfort his mother. A scene where Ellen becomes paranoid about the shark targeting Shawn sheds a little light on how Martin died.
Sharks don't commit murder, they don't pick out a person.
It picked out Shawn. It killed your father.
Dad died from a heart attack.
He died from fear. The fear of it killed him.
Martin died from fear. He died from fear. I'm going to chalk this up to paranoia because no way did that guy die from fear. They persuade her to come and stay with them for a while to try and get away from everything. She says yes and flies with them to the Bahamas, where she meets the pilot Hoagie played by Michael Caine, who missed his Oscar acceptance ceremony to be in this shipwreck of a movie. Upon arriving in the Bahamas, Ellen fears for Thea's life when she is playing near the water, so she calls her in. But hey, it's not like the great white shark species which is famous for hating warm water followed them for over 1,000 miles across the ocean, and I'm going to stop talking right here because we all know that is exactly what happened. You may want to know how I will react to this. And while I could rage about all the scientific inaccuracies it brings to us, or question how it knew exactly where they were going. But you know what? In a film that is about a shark taking things personally, it seems a little unnecessary to question things like that. The next day, while Michael is at work, Ellen is on the beach building a sandcastle with Thea. Where Hoagie shows up, is he stalking her? They then ditch Thea and go to a parade. Meanwhile, Michael is working on a snail project with his colleague Jake, played by Mario Van Peebles, who is out in the sub and then suddenly the shark swims past him. I guess it doesn't care to eat anyone who isn't on the Shark Mafia's hit list. Instead, the shark decides to head up to the surface and chomp down on the barge, in a feeble attempt to get Michael Brody. At that very moment, however far away she is, Ellen freezes.
I'm fine.
No, you're not.
Does she have a psychic link to this shark? Discovering that there is a great white about gives Jake an idea. Become rich and famous by being the first people to properly study one, especially one that is found in the warm waters of the Bahamas. And this is why I said in the Jaws 3D review that the revenge is a little confusing. Because Michael has no objection to studying this shark. Well, that's not entirely true, he has one objection. He wants to study the snails. They're writing a paper on it and they haven't got enough information about it to complete it. Whereas the actual argument he should be using is that these things have tried to kill him 3 times already. Now, I read somewhere that the third film was taken out of the continuity upon the release of The Revenge. Now, I couldn't find anything official saying that, so I'm just going to assume the character is an idiot and didn't learn anything. After thinking about whether he should tell his mother about the shark or not, he decides it's best not to. That's another thing. Even if we skip over the events of Jaws 3D, which I am not, by the way, but let's just say we are, he still knows that these things are extremely dangerous from what happened to him in the first 2 films, but he lets people go swimming anyway, and doesn't even alert them to the fact that they may possibly get ripped limb from limb by a great white shark. Jake creates a device that will allow them to track the shark via its heartbeat, so long as it is close enough to the boat. They then lure the shark to the barge and stick the tracker to it. Ellen seems to be growing fond of Hoagie as they spend more time together, and to be honest, their relationship seems to be more fun to watch than any shark-related escapades that Michael and Jake get up to. But I think that comes down to Michael Caine being more fun to watch with his various stories than seeing a rubber shark bite down on something, because God knows we have seen that so many times in the last few movies. And here we have a recreation of the scene in Jaws. And I know it's a recreation, but I think this scene does a lot to make it feel like this really is the Brody family, just years later. And I also like that it stopped to give a nod towards one of the not necessary scenes in Jaws, but still a nice scene. They take time off from studying the shark to resume work on their snails project, while Jake monitors the sensors for any sign of the shark. Michael is tagging snails when suddenly the shark's heartbeat comes on the screen out of nowhere, and within seconds the shark is tearing the sub apart, so Michael escapes the sub and swims to the shipwreck. This shark's hell-bent on revenge plan is a little confusing, because it managed to swim over 1,000 miles across the ocean in just a few days, so it must have been going at quite some speed. But here it is struggling to keep up with the man that is swimming away from it. I just don't think his heart is in it. So as Brody swims into the wrecked ship, the shark follows him. Sorry. I just find the image of that shark swimming through those cramped little corridors just really funny for some reason. Just as the shark breaks through the wall, Michael uses his air tank to propel him to the surface. Oh, like it doesn't fit. The very next day, or in other words, 40 seconds later in the movie, he's going back down there because he doesn't want fear to control him. While he is conquering his newly found fears of the ocean, his family are at the beach, where Thea is going for a ride on the banana boat. So, which will the shark go after? The elusive Michael Brody, who is underwater without the protection of a sub? Or will it go after the little girl who is sat on a raft? Well, let's think. The film's nearing the final showdown, so it's going to want to cause mass panic. So, I'm going to guess the little girl sat on the raft. But being the skillful shark that he is, he misses Thea and gets someone else instead. Well, you tried your hardest, but let's be honest here, you suck at being a hitman. Or hitfish. Whichever it is, you suck at it. Ellen thinks enough is enough and takes Michael and Jake's boat out to find the shark. But I thought they were already using the boat, you know, out at sea while Michael went diving. Maybe they'd already gotten back, who knows? But if they did, why wouldn't he be out at the beach with his family, considering they were only there so his wife could unveil the artwork she was working on? He's just a terrible husband. Well, whatever. When Michael does find out, he gets Jake and they go out to try and find her, where they come across Hoagie Fishing, who suggests a faster way of locating Ellen. They fly around for a bit, and when they finally find her, they radio in her position, But since she is currently being attacked by the shark, they decide to land in the water and swim over to help her out. They almost kill off Hoagie, but he manages to fool the shark and swim around and climb up on the boat. Jake explains that if they can get the shark to eat one of those receivers, they can use the other one to send an electrical charge into him and drive him crazy. They manage to drop one of the receivers into the shark's mouth, but it takes Jake with it. Michael then drives it crazy by activating the devices. Stop it! Stop it! That just... Oh god, that is funny. Sorry, just the shark popping its head out and Ellen has flashbacks of events that she never witnessed. Odd. She then rams into the shark, stabbing it. And if that was what killed the shark, I would be happy. But no, it then just explodes. And why did it explode? I mean, I know they explain those devices could shock it and drive it crazy, but as far as I'm concerned, that could just annoy it. I mean, okay, electrocute it as a stretch, but not blow it up. Was it just so they could use stock footage from Jaws? The boat got overturned in the explosion, and then we find out that Jake somehow survived, after being dragged into the sea with his torso in the shark's mouth. You know, when I came to do the research for this movie, I knew it was bad, but then I found out that they made 2 versions of this nightmare. In the original version, Jake died, and the shark died via being stabbed in its throat. There was no explosion, but then they made the second version, where Jake survives, and the explosion happened. Now, I don't know why they made 2 versions. Maybe it was because they just weren't done pissing on the memory of the original Jaws movie. When they are back on land, Ellen packs her bags ready to go home.
I want you all to come to Amity this summer.
What? You want them to visit you in Amity for the summer? You mean you're not moving someplace very far away from the water? Because if one shark wanted revenge, maybe another one does. There could be an entire chain of sharks that are after your blood. But of course, she doesn't think of that. So she then bids them farewell, and Hoagie flies her back to Amity Island, where the movie ends. When I decided to start reviewing the Jaws sequels, I was certain that I would dislike the 4th the most. But when I came to watch it again, I found myself having much more fun with it than I did watching Jaws 3D. And since then, I've just been wondering why. Because the script is the most stupid it's been out of all the Jaws films, the shark looks so much more fake, and aside from the opening, all the scenes involving the shark were really bad. And I mean really bad, to the extent that it feels like the opening belongs to another movie entirely. And just look at the fin moving through the water. One of the things that all the prior movies, even Jaws 3D, managed to do really well was show the fin moving through the water very effectively, but here it's just laughably ridiculous. I mean, this whole movie is just a good example of less is more. We see way too much of the shark. The fact that it's in the Bahamas with lighter waters certainly plays a part in that, but even then the way they shoot some of the later deaths is ridiculous. The shark just sinks into the water after attacking, not dives or swims away, it just sinks. And the whole setup was just stupid. I mean, really? Sharks wanting revenge? So, the odds were far greater that I would like Jaws 3D more. But it was the characters. I mean, nothing against the cast of Jaws 3D, or even 2, but aside from Scheider, everyone just seemed bland. And while Ellen Brody's paranoia gets a little tiring at times, I understand why she was paranoid. Okay, technically it wasn't paranoia, it was some psychic crap, because the shark was really out to get them. But if it wasn't, she has every reason to be paranoid. I mean, all the shark-related crap that happened to her family in the past movies. And then her son becomes another shark attack fatality. It's completely justified. Then she meets Hoagie, who helps her take her mind off it, which is why she seemed less obsessed as the movie went on. Well, right up until the scene at the beach. So in my opinion, I think her character was done really well. And the only thing that I didn't like about it was the fact that there really was a shark out to get her. Which speaks magnitudes considering it's a Jaws movie that is focusing on revenge. When comparing Lance Guest to Quaid, they both come up pretty damn bland. But at least in this, it feels like he is a grown-up Michael Brody because he is around his mother for most of the movie. And again there is this scene. All that helped us to believe that he is a grown-up version of the kid here. But the best character had to be Hoagie. Kane just played him as a charming, laid-back guy that just wanted to have fun, and because of that he made the movie less dull. However, while I may have found Jaws the Revenge to be more entertaining than Jaws 3D, I do not think it's a better movie. Jaws 3D tried, it failed, but it tried. With The Revenge, apart from the opening, it just felt like it gave up. I mean, apart from some characters, it was ridiculously stupid, cheap looking, and just makes you think how on earth did this movie cost $23 million to make? So to sum up, Jaws the Revenge is the worst Jaws movie. It's bad. It's really bad. But it's laughably bad. See you next time.